Donald Trump and Elon Musk continue to emotionally terrorize federal workers, terminating some by the hundreds and requiring others to prove why they shouldn't be fired too. Of course, a lot of people disagree with the terminations and especially the way it's being handled. Now, instead of focusing on government employees, easy targets, why not focus on eliminating police departments and prosecuting crooked ass cops like the ones in Hanceville, Alabama, where a grand jury just last week found that the police department is so corrupt that it should be immediately abolished. There are several officers that have been charged with drug distribution, including one of the cops' wives, and tampering with evidence. A police dispatcher died of a drug overdose on the job. Take a look at this information.
Grand jury sent down 9 findings and recommendations to the city of Hanceville, which include a rampant culture of corruption, abolishing the police department, and the death of a dispatcher was the direct result of the Hanceville Police Department's negligence.
These officers find themselves on the opposite end of the laws they were sworn to uphold.
5 officers, including the Hanceville police chief, arrested following an extensive probe into the department. Dispatcher Chris Willingham was found dead in his office in August. His cause of death was the toxic effects of fentanyl and other drugs. Crocker says Willingham had access to the evidence room.
I would just say that.
Now I'm going to stop it there and I want to emphasize that this place is so corrupt that they were, and then I'll show you more of that video, but the police department is so corrupt that police officers were getting into, allegedly, according to the information, getting into the drugs that were kept in the evidence and apparently taking part and taking drugs on the job. This is just ridiculous. So first, my thought is, how many people were victimized by these people? There's no telling what was going on. But if you know anybody who lives in and around Hanceville, Alabama, then they need to pay special attention to what's going on. Let's keep going with this story. It's only about a 2-minute story.
About the evidence room, and when Mr. Willingham was discovered, there was evidence in his office.
Crocker went into detail on how people had access to evidence. It was through this hole in the wall. He says people would use the broomstick to jiggle the door open.
This individual who had the stick is actually sticking his head and upper body into the hole.
Crocker says evidence tampered with includes cases in Hanceville Municipal Court and in state court.
I am not optimistic about the ability to prosecute cases with tampered evidence.
The question remains how many that will be.
We're working on that. One is too many.
Grand jury found the Hanceville Police Department is acting more like a criminal enterprise than law enforcement.
Okay, that's enough of that. They basically said it. The Hanceville Police Department is operating more like a criminal enterprise than a police department. So again, if you know anybody who lives in and around Hanceville, Alabama, and they have a case that is pending, or they have been charged and or convicted based on cases that might have been tried as a result of the Hanceville, Alabama Police Department, you need to make some phone calls. This is all the evidence that is needed for them to be retried, their case to be retried, re-examined, all of that. So that's what needs to happen. Now, this is Alabama, okay? So we know that this is probably not the only police department that should be abolished. The state of Alabama and their propensity to railroad black men for crimes that they did not commit was the subject of the movie Just Mercy. You might have seen it a couple of years ago. It was starring Jamie Foxx, and it was starring Michael B. Jordan. And so it's all based on the work that's done, that's still being done, by the way, by attorney Brian Stevenson and the Equal Justice Initiative. Now, I went to visit the Equal Justice Initiative headquarters. It's a information center, if you will. They have documented all of the lynchings that happened in the United States between, let's say, 1930 and 1970. They have soil samples from where lynchings took place. They have a makeshift, like a museum that shows how people were housed. The EJI headquarters in Montgomery, Alabama, also is near where the 1955 Montgomery bus boycott took place. Now, I'm bringing this up in addition because it also, this grand jury that brought down the indictment against the police officers and the police department, saying that they're so corrupt that they need to be abolished immediately, happened on February 20th, a few days ago, 2025. February 20th also happens to be the same day that a grand jury in Montgomery, Alabama indicted 89 of the leaders of the Montgomery bus boycott. And it just so happens that, and I don't think it's a just so happened, but it was on February 20th, 1955, that 89 people were indicted. And I want to show you that information or the pictures, which I'm sure if you, with this being Black History Month, you probably, and even if it wasn't Black History Month, you probably already know this and have seen this photo. But this is a photo of the four of the leaders that they said were that were indicted because of their leading people to boycott the bus system in Montgomery. So to the left is Miss Joanne Robinson, and of course to the far right is Miss Rosa Parks. The second from the left is Reverend Ralph Abernathy, and third from the left is Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. This happened, this indictment of 89 people, including these four, happened on February 20th, 1955, the same day, 65 years later, that a grand jury indicted the Hanceville Police Department in Hanceville, Alabama, saying they're so damn corrupt that they need to be ceased immediately. Now, the video I was showing you, one of the reporters asked went to City Hall to ask the mayor, so I know you know about this indictment, what you gonna do about it? And they closed the shade and they closed the door on the people and didn't want to talk about it. It's like, really? And then so someone did talk and said, well, it's got to go through a meeting with the city council and all of that, which should in itself be looked into, because if there is that immediate of a decision or that final of a decision that's made about a police department and the corruption that's going on there, it seems to me that that should happen immediately. And of course, if it does, they said that the county sheriff's department would take over law enforcement in the area. So again, if you know anybody who lives in that area, they need to look into any indictments, any charges, any convictions that might have gone through the police department, because newsflash, they said that they are so corrupt that they need to be shut down. Yeah. So Ain't nothing changed but the date on the calendar, especially in Alabama. Okay, so let's stay in Alabama a minute before I let you go. Now, I started talking to you about how tons of people are realizing that Donald Trump's plans to turn people's lives upside down was not just about the lives of undocumented workers. Some white people done messed around and found out that Donald Trump and Project 2025 also had them in the crosshairs. Okay, Donald Trump and Musk are denigrating their talking about abolishing the Department of Education. And let me stop there and say this: don't you find it peculiar that for so long, and even still now, the nation, the United States, is like, oh, you got to have a degree, you got to have certain types of skill sets, you got to go to college, you got to do this, that, and the third, you got to have an Ivy League education. But then when things are not going the way they want, now all of a sudden, oh, education needs to be abolished, it needs to be changed. They want to take the public fund tax money and fund charter schools and fund private schools and do everything with that money except educate people who are paying the taxes to pay for public schools. I find that hypocritic and baffling, basically. Now, I'm bringing up education in Alabama because of this. There's somebody named, she's a senator of Alabama. Her name is Kate Britt, Senator Kate Britt. Now, apparently, Senator Britt was okay with plans to defund programs when it came to programs like Head Start, and when it came to defunding programs that historically and that she thought were going to take money away from underprivileged children like Head Start. As a matter of fact, I used to be part of Head Start when I was a tyke. My mother put me in this program. So I think it's a good program for people who might not be able to fully, kids need the education, but maybe their parents can't fully fund regular you don't want to wait until they need to go to kindergarten. You probably want to start them earlier. So that's what Head Start is about. And if you have kids, you probably know a little bit about Head Start. So there's a part of Project 2025 that's talking about defunding certain educational programs in addition to abolishing the Department of Education. So Senator Britt was okay with that. But apparently she didn't read Project 2025 all the way through, or she didn't read enough into it, because on page 400 and something, I think it is, it clearly talks about defunding NIH, the National Institutes of Health. Well, it turns out that the National Institutes of Health is a big financial backer of the University of Alabama system, their college system. NIH provides research grants and scholarships system-wide, so much so that the University of Alabama system gets around $413 million in federal grants for research and scholarships and other funding. And 60% of the recipients of that money are white women. So now Senator Britt wants to cry Becky tears because that money is about to dry up. Oh yeah, and the University of Alabama system is the number one employer in the state of Alabama. So if it's the number one employer in the state of Alabama, and the number one where they get most of their money, NIH, is about to dry up the funds, then that means a lot of people, most of the people in Alabama, are going to be ass out, basically, when it comes to how they got paid. And so now the senator from Alabama wants everybody to care about her in her state when apparently she didn't give a damn about the little kids who needed money to go to Head Start. Go figure. So it's amazing to me how some are okay with seeing other people suffer financially, but when the money truck does not stop at their house, they want everybody to care about them. Have you ever thought about that? Make it make sense. This is just another episode of They Messed Around and They Found Out. Okay? So, again, if you know anybody who is living in and around Hanceville, Alabama, that department has been found to be so corrupt, and the police officers in it have been charged with various crimes from drug trafficking and some other stuff, and including one of somebody's wife, as well as the police department chief, the chief of police, so corrupt that it needs to be abolished immediately. And that was last week. So let's see. I'll keep checking on it. Let's see how long it takes for them to actually shut them down. Okay. So this is maybe where Donald Trump and Elon Musk need to be focusing on. They need to be going around the country, starting in Alabama, A for Alabama, trying to figure out where all these corrupt people, these corrupt law enforcement agencies with these and what they're doing, and hey, start with them. I don't think anybody would have a problem with that, shutting down corrupt police law enforcement agencies. So that's all I got for you tonight. To find out more, I did want to share with you that link. Remember, I am in a contest. If you want to know more, you can hit me up and I can tell you more. You can just go to that link. But to find out more about the things that I care about, you can go to the written version of my journal. It's at EUR Web. Thank you so much and have a super